Good morning, everyone. Morning. Our next panel, curated by the amazing Oliver Wyman, will delve into the role of Gen Z in the fight against climate change. Please join us in welcoming Anna Kreacic and our esteemed panelists.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Wonderful to be here today. I'm Anna Kreacic. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer of Oliver Wyman Group and the COO of the Oliver Wyman Forum. And we're here to talk about an incredibly important generation and the influential role it has in the fight against climate change. Gen Z, let me start by saying Gen Z is by no means a homogeneous group. It is 25% of the world population. It's set to become the largest spending group by 2030, and similarly in terms of their participation for the workforce. So a huge influence in terms of how we can harness their power for fighting climate change. I think for those of you that might not know, the Oliver Wyman Forum is Marsh McLennan's platform for engaging key business, public policy, and societal leaders on a number of shared challenges that are not fixable in any easy way and are typically not fixable by one institution or one individual alone. And for, in terms of context, right about when COVID started, we started looking at how humans would change, how they would change how they shop, how they would change how they live, how they would change in terms of their behaviors and values. And very quickly, we started seeing differences in terms of how Generation Z was changing compared to any other generation, and what they were prioritizing and what they were valuing. Right now, the study is 3 years old, or new, I should say, because it keeps going every month. And we have over 250,000 data points in it, so a lot of voices, and that's what the statistics were that you were seeing earlier on the screen. You saw them, so I'm not going to call them out here. But I'm going to go straight in terms of introducing a fantastic group of speakers that we have here today. I'm going to start with Saeed Alremeithi, co-founder of The Organic Farm. He actually has a space here at COP, so hopefully some of you can join us afterwards and come see it. Razan Bashiti, CEO of Injaz UAE, that supports skills and economic development of youth. Kelvin Massingham, Director of Risk and Resilience at FSD Africa. Anas Bukash, probably needs no introduction in this region. Entrepreneur, interviewer, host of AB Talks, and more. And Juliet Davenport, founder and former CEO of Good Energy, which is a 100% renewable energy company. So a wide variety of perspectives. And I'd love to kick off the session to frame it. We know that Gen Z is very passionate about climate change. They're prioritizing it in terms of how they shop. They're prioritizing it in terms of who they work for. But what do you feel we might not know about Gen Z, or what this audience might not know about Gen Z that we should know? And Anas, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm not from Gen Z, so that doesn't really help. But I can tell you what I think. So hello, hi everyone. What I'll share is just my opinion, and it might be relevant or not, but from what I've noticed is one of the challenges we have is every generation criticizes the generation before. And it's the easiest thing to do, that we think our way was better or our childhood. It's like when you sit with your dad and he's like, when I was young, I didn't do it. And I'm like, yeah, I know when you were young, I know the story, you've said it 6 times. And we end up doing the same to the next generation and to our kids and whatnot, and we think our way was the better way usually. So I think that's the first mistake. The first mistake is not to celebrate the current generation and adapt to them rather than them adapting to us. We have to adapt to them because they're the next wave of people and they will have their kids and whatnot. So the moment you shift your mind into thinking, let me celebrate their skill set, let me celebrate their attitude, it's harder to do that, because it's not what we're familiar with, but it's the right way, I believe, to approach it. The second thing is something we discussed quickly, is how knowledgeable they are compared to, I honestly think I was a retard when I was young. compared to them. Like I sit with my kids, and the other day I was with my brother and family in the car. We were on a family trip in Europe, and my brother goes, "Did you know that chimps are 10 times as strong as human beings?" So my son, who's 12, goes, "No, it's 2." And he goes, "No, no, it's 10." He goes, "No, I just did the assignment in school, it's 2." So my brother takes a pause, he checks on Google, he's like, "Yeah, okay, it's 2." So it's so funny how they're so knowledgeable and way more aware, like you mentioned, with climate change, environment, and all of these things. And we need to celebrate that. And we need to see how they digest information. We talked about how we maybe Google, but they TikTok to literally see reviews of a restaurant or a product or whatnot. So I think that's my general statement on how to celebrate rather than criticize.
100%.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
I think just to build on that, one of the other pieces is I think you also have to look at the different countries and how big the Gen Z is as part of the population. So Dubai celebrated its 52nd year, I think, this sort of on Saturday. It's a very young population in comparison to places like the UK. And so actually what's interesting about that is Gen Z probably will have a much bigger impact. Whereas I think sometimes I come across Gen Z in the UK and they feel very frustrated because the pace of change is so so slow, partially because we have quite an aging population. So the people who are telling Gen Z, "Oh, we don't like you," etc., carry on forever in our society. So I think we have to watch that intergenerational frustration coming through and embrace, as you said, the next step, because they are terrifyingly brilliant, I would say. My experience, I recently taught on a course in Oxford on the MSc on sustainable enterprise. And there were 30 places in this course, 600 applicants. The people on this course, I'm glad I didn't read their CVs before I presented, because they've all got at least 2 degrees. They've probably at least delivered 1 startup in their lives. And they are seriously on it. So I think they're brilliant. I think we need to find a way to allow them to flourish and to make sure they're getting the funding and the backing they need.
Yeah, incredibly important. And we're starting to see what you said about countries that have large populations of Generation Z. We're already starting to see some differences in terms of how they behave. So they're much more likely to adopt generative AI as an example, and so you're starting to see differences between countries that are investing heavily and innovative in generative AI versus countries that are using them, simply because of the different shape of the pyramid, and that's replicating in business as well.
Anna, if you allow me, perhaps when speaking about Gen Z, it's the closest to my heart, being a mother as well as leading an organization that mainly focuses on working on youth. But as you've, just to echo what you have said, when it comes to Gen Z, they don't want to be seen as part of the problem. They see themselves part of the solution. And they carry ahead with this vision, holding and embedding a very high standard value system within them. And to be honest, it's a proud moment when we see them. I've had a conversation a few days ago inviting one of my students to this panel to attend. And I told her, come because we have this session about climate change and Gen Z. And she told me, Razan, don't say climate change, it's a system change. So it just shows you how deep they go in their thinking process and how serious they are, that they want to be seen as part of the solution, to be honest.
That's a great example. Before we go to our Gen Zer in residence here to see if the way we're talking about Generation Z actually resonates with him, Kelvin, what do you think?
Great, yeah. So I think actually one of the things about Gen Z is that they really value authenticity and genuineness. And so in that spirit, I wouldn't classify myself as an expert on Gen Z, although I do have 3 Gen Z kids and work with innovators that are from that age bracket. But the thing I think I'd like to call out is that they are extremely passionate about causes. So they're activists, they get really involved, but the way they get involved is somewhat different from older generations. They really want to own the content, be part of the creating something. They're not willing to just consume content. They're always asking questions. They're wanting to challenge the status quo, do things differently. And so there's this passion combined with a desire to do things differently. And I think in terms of unleashing entrepreneurship for big issues like climate change, that's huge potential.
Saeed, do you agree?
I'd like listening for everyone, about everyone, and I will cite my point. First of all, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to spread the awareness with my friends and families here. Being a Gen Z myself, I think most people may agree with me when I say that we don't just consume things without expecting a benefit. I mean, sure, it may be a trend, but when it is a case, we need to know if this case is actual doing what it's saying it will or not. And also in my case, I never expected people to directly support my farm just because it's organic. I make sure that they know why they want to consume organic product via videos that I upload, via things that I show them in real life, how people was changing from eating the normal food to organic food and how their life was more sustainable, more natural. They have more benefit to their nutrients in their meals. And also, I do that through social media on my platform. In my platform, everyone is family, the organic farm family, I say. We grow together. I make sure I always be available to help everyone in person or on social media to live a sustainable life.
So you got us into the next question, which is really around how do we start leveraging social media and activating Gen Z on social media. We've seen, I think over the last few years, that Gen Z really expect public figures and influencers to speak on causes they care about on social media. And this is, whether we're calling it a climate change or a system change, it is one of the causes they care deeply about. Anas, I mean, you founded marketing agency Bukash Brothers. You're a famous influencer, so I'm going to start with you. How do you think influencers can help further the cause of climate activism here with Gen Z especially?
The thing is, anybody with a smartphone is a creator. It doesn't matter. You could have 2 followers, but if you put a really good piece of content, it can go everywhere. So everybody who has a phone is a content creator. So I think the main challenge is the information pollution. You are today, I would assume, before you had limited. You would choose 2 to 3 TV channels or websites to consume certain information about the world or about what's happening. And maybe in the traditional media platforms, they have to really vet the right journalist or the right specialist to talk about a specific thing. Today, everybody can talk about it, which has its pros and its cons. When I say information pollution, it's how much information is being fed about one topic, and then how legit is the actual information. This is a huge challenge. So is Gen Z more aware by tens and tens of folds? The amount of information that is accessible in 1 second is crazy. It's just a lot. But then which information am I getting influenced with, and which information is legit and whatnot. I think that's the big challenge. And I remember we had this quick discussion where I said, if I got 1 water today, I can go and pay 50 people around COP, normal people, and I'm normal following. And I'm like, okay, here's $100 each of you. Take this water, drink it, and say, there's something so cool about this one. I feel great, and post it on TikTok. Suddenly, I caused a whole campaign with normal-looking people, with normal following, and then that Gen Z, my person, can be like, we should buy this water. I saw so many people, so many random people around COP really enjoying this water. And now, how do you go to the next step? And maybe a nice article I read said you should always ask, how do you know? So if Anna, you come to me and say, I really think this doctor is really good at joint pain. My first question should be to you, how do you know? And you say, yeah, because my friend posted it on our Instagram. Okay, how do you know this doctor is actually legit? Let's go to the website. We go to the website. Who did this website? He did it for himself, or is it belonging to a clinic or a hospital? What did he study? So the more you ask, how do you know, the more you actually see, maybe he's a doctor, he's a vet, and now suddenly you're talking about human joints. And you're like, why am I even believing this? So how do you know, I think, is a good filter.
I think that's a critical filter, especially given how much disinformation there is, as what you talked about, and as much as Gen Z use social media, they're also the most likely generation to be disinformed online. Razan, you talked about this a little bit as well.
True. I mean, with when we speak about social media, with the huge potential and power that social media brings into Gen Z and youth in general, because we all know that the youth and next generation are spending the majority of their time present online versus than having them in person, whether it's monitoring their behaviors inside the house or outside. But what I want to say is that with all of the potential and promise that social media has, it has not yet been recognized as a tool to promote for climate advocacy, unfortunately. But I still believe that we are very hopeful with Gen Zs and the next generation, because they go on for the extra mile where they want to validate and not only consume.
Juliet, have you seen any good examples of where social media has been used for climate advocacy?
I mean, I think obviously climate advocacy has used all the different platforms to different extents, and it has raised a certain level of awareness. But I think you still tend to go to organizations that you trust, have done the work, and have checked the information, because that is always the challenge, particularly on scientific points, is who has actually done the research? Where has it come from? Why do I believe this, or why don't I believe this? And I mean, I think we're seeing a shift that in terms of the direction of solutions around climate change, that we're having, people are more happy to embrace a wider range. But historically, there really has been this mantra around, it has to be this technology, or it has to be this technology. And that is a challenge with social media, is that you can get this information that comes through where people are very passionate about their points, and you read their articles, and you get to the end, and you go, yeah, but what is your point, except being annoyed by something? And what is your proof point? So I think the how question is super important. Actually, sort of whatever level you're at, asking how is incredibly powerful as a question.
You know, I'll just add something if, okay. I'm not meaning that information should be limited to certain broadcasters. I don't mean that at all. I just mean we need to be critical what we're listening to, but the Gen Z is also so creative, they can take a complex topic like climate change, and in 30 seconds you find a funny video and you get the 3 key messages and you're done. And that goes viral. And I think that's what's important, is to take typically challenging topics that not everybody will like, and Saeed just showed me a video of how he's talking about organic farming in a comedic acting way, and one of them hit 400K views. If you go with a typical article and talk about organic farming, you'll get a very niche audience. But if you do it in a funny way...
I was going to go to Saeed next for exactly that purpose, because as much content as there is online, and even if you're the person that's seeking out credible content on social media, whether it's actually reaching the widest audience is completely different. And if we use traditional ways of telling that story, you might not reach the widest audience. But Saeed, you shared some great examples with us in terms of how to do this and how you've done this for the organic farm.
For the organic farm, I started my videos like any content creator, was direct to the camera speaking, and the views was like 10,000, and some people will say that 10,000 is very good. But in social media, we have millions of people. If it's not reaching 100,000 for 100,000, there is a problem with the video. You need to see it again. With trying several times with several type of videos, I reached the funny way of implementing organic farming in my home. Saeed, that he don't know anything, and Saeed, the expert of the farming. And there is a two way of communication. And Saeed does not see to the camera. He's seeing the other Saeed. The people seeing his eye contact is with the other one. That's why the people will say to see the video. And also make it funny. Because as in my generation, I see the videos in TikTok and other videos. The videos going viral was the funniest video that they have in the platform. How to transfer my information, my article that I read, about the point that she tell us about the information that we implement in the videos. It need to be research, need to be articles that we read, accurate as possible. And this is what I am doing with the New Media Academy. I am also with the New Media Academy as a social media influencer. And they direct us to take the information from the right person or the right information, reorganize it in 30 to 1 minute with a funny direction and post it in social media. And I saw more than 1 million views in my account and more than 15 million in the organic farm.
Wow. So for those of you in the audience, that's amazing. For those of you in the audience that might not have reached 1 million views yet, I'm among those. I guess there's still hope for some of us in terms of how we approach this. But you start on a point. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. We talked about how to get that off the ground. Obviously, entrepreneurs can be a very powerful force in terms of fighting climate change and just bringing new ideas into action. So, I wanted to turn back to you, Juliet, as an environmental entrepreneur. You set up one of the first renewable energy companies to compete with British Gas, no small feat in the UK. You sit on boards of many innovative companies helping tackle the climate crisis. What challenges, I guess, do you see to having just more climate-friendly startups? I mean, Saeed started from zero on the ground and got the movement behind the organic farm himself. But how do we get more ideas into action, and how do we get more entrepreneurs off the ground here?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of people who are now interested in the kind of concept of a startup, the concept of being a green startup. Actually, I did write a book called The Green Startup. But one of the key things is you only really get permission to be green if you actually can run a business. So one of the key focuses has to be at the beginning is what is your business model? Because unless you can do that, you kind of don't have the luxury to do everything else. And I think sometimes, quite often I get quite a lot of people, young people come and talk to me about this is the business they want to start up. And the concept of what they're trying to do from an environmental point of view is awesome. It's brilliant. But they now then need to translate that back into a business forum. So what does that look like? How do you essentially make money out of it? And I think that translation is the one that takes quite a long time. And sometimes there's a little bit of naivety about the fact that this is a brilliant product. I come across it with engineers as well. Engineers tell me, this is the way we should do it, because this is exactly how it should perform. But the reality is that when you take that to market, perhaps nobody wants it. So I do think that's really important. I do think the translation piece is really interesting, though. I did many, so I can't remember, it's a couple of years ago, we did a podcast where we used two experts and a comedian in each part. So it was called Great Green Questions. And it used that translation mechanism. Comedians and social commentators are brilliant translators. And sometimes you get this divide between scientists and engineers and entrepreneurs, actually, as well, and the rest of the world. And you need that translation coming together. And so I think when you see young entrepreneurs, they need to if they're not brilliant translators themselves, they need a translator. And then they also need to have somebody who can figure out what the business model is of their new business and enterprise.
Yeah, 100%. How many Gen Z entrepreneurs do we have in the audience? Do we have any? Raise of hands. None.
The one.
There we go.
Here. Okay. One. Well, yes, right. But in the audience.
I bet we have. I bet we've got loads.
All right, there's one. Okay.
All of these guys here.
A few more. Wonderful. Kelvin, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I just want to build on that because part of what we as an organization do is try to solve that problem in Africa. How do you get more innovators, entrepreneurs that are young, developing startups that tackle this problem? And what we hear from them is they want to act on climate change, They don't want to be victims. They want to be part of building a better world. But how do we get started? So they have the ideas, but no really idea how to then move forward from that. So we created a venture launcher called Triggering Exponential Climate Action, which basically takes Gen Z, millennials that have ideas, and we form teams around those ideas and then give them venture building support to actually get to launch. And the thing that we found is that there's been a huge amount of demand for that program, so a large number of applications. And Gen Z are very willing to take risk, so to leave their fairly comfortable jobs to go and do something because they care so much about it. And so I think there's just an incredible amount of potential to unleash the Saeeds of the world onto these problems.
Thank you. You're leading us into the next question, and I wanted to start with Razan, you, which is around Gen Z work and just the talent value proposition, as well as any skills that we need to be building, whether it's for having more Gen Z entrepreneurs fighting climate change or anything else. This generation is the first generation of what we call digital work natives. And they behave in many similar ways, what I call the most generation. They're the most technologically savvy. They tend to behave quite similarly in many places around the world. Do you see, or have you seen a shift in skills that people are looking for or people are hiring for, as well as what Gen Z is turning towards in terms of their preferences?
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for the question. I think I'm going to answer in two parts. The first, going back a step back into the pre-entrepreneurship stage where we are doing the work of empowerment inside schools and universities. And one thing that we notice is that when we hold an Innovation Day camp, for example, a workshop that gets to present a business challenge for students, we see them coming up with ideas of 80% of the presentations being around climate change, environment, and energy, and solving problems for that. And what really strikes out is youth's capability and ability to use different problem-solving tools when it comes to analyzing these challenges in terms of critical thinking, in terms of thinking about the big picture, in terms of understanding the connection circle and the impact and how does this affect change and how to take over change. On the other hand, what we also witness today is the private sector participation and involvement in the early education process, where companies are not only working on creating sustainable solutions, but they're also very keen into introducing these solutions at an early stage hand in hand with academia and academic institutions.
And we're seeing more and more announcements from academic institutions, as Juliet, you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, the course I recently taught on, 30 students, amazing, 600 applicants for that course, the most sought out course at Oxford University at the moment on sustainable enterprise. And I think this is one of the things that the institutions are going to have to look at, is that how do they deal with the capacity of people who want to learn more about this, and what are they going to do to flex so that they can actually take advantage, to support this generation into where they want to go with their lives.
Yeah, and I think Columbia University, I was mentioning, just made an announcement this week that it was opening up its climate programs to people online, which is a huge, huge shift. Mm-hmm. Kelvin, shifting us to finance. You're passionate about financial innovation. You're passionate about the green future. A lot of my research shows that Gen Z very much shares this passion. How do you think the investing landscape is changing with more and more demand for climate products? I mean, it's a tough landscape overall right now. How do you see that shifting and evolving?
Yes, I think Gen Z is going to radically influence the way the investment landscape looks in the future, and that is already happening. We're in a transition, but I think one of the big drivers already is Gen Z, and I know that because we work with large banks and insurers in Africa on helping to embed sustainability into their strategy, and then implementing that. And actually, the number one driver of why they're doing that is because they want to future-proof their business and understand that Gen Z will soon be 30% of the workforce, and in the future will be large investors, and so they need to create solutions and products that cater to Gen Z, and so that's a big driving force. So I think what we're going to see is genuinely green investment products, because Gen Z won't tolerate greenwashing or products that aren't actually contributing to these environmental objectives. So much more in that space. I think that they have to be digital. The way that banks and insurers engage with their customers will radically change. The UI will be digital, the advertising, the customer engagement will be digital. And that needs to happen a lot faster. I mean, if you look at a lot of the big banks at the moment, very few of them have TikTok accounts or active accounts. And then I think the third thing is that Gen Z, they're used to getting very personalized advice from their network, from crowdsourcing ideas from social media. And so they really demand personal solutions from their service providers. And so they're going to need a wider range of options that speak to their specific demographic. And they actually need also simple solutions, because I think what you find is a lot of Gen Z are unsure about finances, and they get a lot of conflicting advice from social media, and there's a lot of them that invest in cryptocurrency and these alternative things, but listen to influencers more than financial advisors. And so actually, if financial institutions want to capture their attention, they need to come very simply, transparently, and offer these kind of digital engagement channels that are green.
Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, many of the financial institutions are not on TikTok. They're not using TikTok to search and offer it up. And I think that presents a little bit of a challenge in terms of how do you reach them, but also coming back to what Anas and Saeed, you were saying in terms of that clarity and humor, because a lot of Gen Z are spending time in their online communities, and so they might not be using the traditional methods to seek finance. Anyone else on this one?
I mean, I think I do a whole chapter on finance in the book, because I think traditionally, when organizations have gone and raised finance, they haven't really thought about what's behind the finance or what color that finance looks like in terms of sort of what impact it's going to have on their business. And I think that is shifting. So I don't think the Gen Zs are going to be happy to be financed by a bank that might have the highest carbon footprint for its deposit accounts in the world. And I think it's going to, actually the crowdfunding position is going to be much more powerful. And so actually social media really works with that. I mean, I crowdfunded my company originally by mistake, because there wasn't any other source to fund. And we had customers who kept putting their hands up and saying, can we invest? And I think that if Gen Z is very close to its audience, I think financial institutions are going to have to step up, because crowdfunding is a very good source of capital and a very easy source of capital for them.
I gotta say, that's a bold ask and solution, but an important one. Maybe we can go in reverse order. I want to make sure we get to Q&A from the audience. So before we close down, Saeed, what bold action do you want to leave the audience with today?
I will start with I can start with being sustainable. Talking about sustainable action, the organic farm, and how it's hard to me to send a picture to the audience or to the people that see my content. Nothing is hard. We all, as young advocate in COP or other institute, work hard with delivering the information as easy as possible for them. And also, I started with packaging my orders from the farm with my cousin, delivering it with myself, until I reach now. I have a company. I have a delivery company, and also I have workers that they finish the work without me calling them and giving them orders. This is a good improvement that I had in my life, and everyone can start his own business or his own advocacy for climate change. We are going to the next year. It will be a hush on climate, and everyone need to understand what we are facing in the future and how to have a sustainable life for the future.
Brilliant. Kelvin?
Great, so bold action from Gen Z. I would say be an influencer. It doesn't mean you have to have millions of followers on social media, but we know that Gen Z respond to influence from their peers. And so, for your peer group, be an influencer for the causes that you care about. Start to be vocal about it. Start to advocate for it and campaign for it in whatever spheres of influence you have. And I think that can help to start to generate the movement that we need.
Right. So small steps will amplify.
Yeah.
Razan?
I'd say Gen Z is honestly, truly a generation of power. Don't underestimate this power and continue to have these steps towards ensuring a sustainable change, a positive, sustainable change.
After the last question that you had, you mentioned how the financial institutions are not on TikTok. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's a huge opportunity, huge. If some of them boring organizations find a way of being relevant and really being present in the digital way, I think it's a great business opportunity for them. And Juliet mentioned something that, with crowdfunding. As soon as she was talking, I'm like, crowdfunding is probably the way. Now, if a proper financial institution adopted that and said, listen, I really want to accommodate crowdfunding, so anybody who wants to be part of really good startups, we will vet them, and you can register. So now we have your passport, your ID, you're a legit crowdfunder, and this is your rights if you crowdfund in any of the 100 startups. So now I feel way better than sending my money randomly to somebody that I don't know what he'll do with the money, because I see a stamp of a financial institution that gets it. So to end, also I had a conversation before yesterday with a similar panel about climate change, and one of the activists said, listen, I'm going to simplify all of this. We just want money. We just want to find a way, because it starts with money. You support us with money. We're going to buy the right tools. We'll put the right SOPs, the right systems. But it starts with money. We can talk all we want, but we need financial support. And he said it in a nice way. He didn't say we need millions. He said sometimes it's $5,000, sometimes it's $10,000. Just something to get us going, because we have the drive and all of that. And I think with that kind of the crowdfunding idea, the financial institution being present, and the right support to a young audience such as Saeed and millions of Gen Z, you're going to have a huge movement. But just how to get that fund easily, and it's very accessible.
Yeah, so don't get overwhelmed by the size of the problem or the size of the funding that we need, because with all the working hard and everything else, we even with small amounts make a big change. Juliet.
I think for institutions, if you're employing Gen Z, then don't get left behind. Because if you are not delivering what they need or what they want, they will just leave you and bypass you and go somewhere else. So there's a balance here of getting your act together to be ready to support these guys and help them use the energy and the passion they have. But don't for any second think that you're good enough yet. You need to keep moving and keep being better so that Gen Z will actually deliver what they want to deliver.
Yeah, so your last note went to the businesses, and I think on that takeaway, if you're not aligning with their passions, they might be working for you, but they're not really working for you. Yeah. With 50% of them having side hustles. So just think about that. So I think we have a few questions from the audience.
Yes, we have quite a few that have come in. Gen Z grew up in an era of hyperconsumption when everything is available instantly. How does that marry up with climate consciousness? Is Gen Z's bark stronger than their bite when it comes to climate activism?
It's a great question, especially when you apply it to high fashion or fast fashion, as I should say, and things like that. Anyone want to tackle that one? While you think about it, I will note that I think if I remember my statistics right, about 1 in 5 Gen Z are willing to change brands if they don't support their climate causes.
Yeah, again, I'd say it again. Gen Z comes in with a very high standard value system within. So yes, they would not accept to be part of the problem. And by them not accepting being part of the problem, they're going to shy away from companies that don't share the same value system that they have. And they will run away.
Saeed, have you seen that? I mean, people are flocking to you and the organic farm. So as much as there is in some areas hyperconsumption, in other areas it sounds like there's a little bit of an awakening, even though you had to build that market yourself here.
I saw a lot of like incidents happen in social media because of this company is supporting something, or because of this company is adding this product without this adding the other product. They stop buying from them. They like will boycott the company, and that's it. That's why I'm very like caution with my farm, the organic farm, to show them how green we are, how we are near to the climate, and it's not about selling our product, it's about giving the knowledge of organic.
So continue looking for other options. What else do we have?
What can Gen Z do to influence other generations, and can they really?
It's going back to, Anas, your original point here. We should be influenced by Gen Z.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a losing battle if we try to bring them backwards. We're never going to win, and we don't get along. Now, when I talk about Gen Z, it's not just because I want Gen Z to like me, so I'm saying all the right things. I think it's just, I'm quite a logical person, and I think it's the right thing to do. However, can Gen Z also benefit from our experiences and our mistakes and our successes? Absolutely, absolutely. I don't want to say that Gen Z is 100% competent. No, not even us are 100% competent. That's why there's a merge of experiences. And if you can bridge this marriage between generations and put a nice bridge with flowers and it looks really nice, well, that's a good bridge to have, because I can speak their language, I can benefit them with the little things that I had to go through, and you and everybody else. So they might be like, okay, I shouldn't do it this way, I should do it this way. So that's benefiting. And then it's adopting the new way, the fast way. But another topic that just crossed my mind when you were talking about the first question about the bark versus the bite. Something that I think is dangerous yet important is we have trends. Because it's a fast world, it's very trendy to be sometimes green or environmentally friendly. And the big challenge is to be sustainably trendy. Not just trendy for 3 months and everybody suddenly bought a plastic bottle or did something and then they forgot about it. No. How can I make a complete mindset change? It could be with organic food. Okay, yeah, everybody, oh, my neighbors are getting organic food and this influencer is getting organic food. Okay, so I'm excited now. But after 3 months, am I still doing that? And I'm like, no, I don't. I got bored. Now what's the next trend? So I think sustainable trends and completely changing a behavior is the big, or habit is the big challenge for us in a fast world.
Yeah, getting to enduring habits. Before we leave this question in terms of more discourse and make sure you're taking time to talk to each other across generations, did anybody want to comment on that just from a shadow board perspective? So, and having a Gen Z shadow board?
Yeah, so one of the things at Good Energy, when you run a company, essentially you've got 3 stakeholders you're trying to balance: your customers, your employees, and your shareholders. And so those are your constant kind of 3. But what, for me, one bit was always missing, which, and we ended up calling them, and it was a bit clumsy, but we ended up calling it the future holders, actually the people who aren't here today. And sort of trying to think about how do we represent that within our company. And we created a youth board. And that was a really interesting process. And it was brilliant because I loved them. They were fantastic, super. They were between 13 and 17, school age. And they, because we can now do everything virtually, they did it all virtually. We gave them a platform. We gave them training and communications. We took them to conferences, so they spoke at COP26. But what was really interesting about it is that the middle management team of my organization sort of slightly, I don't know, generation-splained. So they were kind of slightly condescending to this group of kids about this is how this works and this is renewables. And these guys just wiped the floor with them. They knew so much more. They were so bright. They were super challenging. And the team went, oh, my God. And it was really a good wake-up to say, this generation knows what they're talking about, and they want you to think about the things that they are thinking about. Interesting, so one of my other roles, I'm a Crown Estate Commissioner in the UK, and we've now just started getting a youth board involved in that, which is amazing, because it's so important to make sure that you're not getting left behind in terms of understanding what the generation is talking about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we've seen more and more of that in even on the corporate side. So Oliver Wyman, CEO, put in place a shadow council that was basically advising all the decisions that have been made. So it can be done. It can be done if you have a private business or if you're a public business, and it's been invaluable. I'm getting a question straight from the audience. Is that okay?
Anna, can I just add something before? Very quick. I mentioned financing the startups, which I think is crucial. But another big challenge is the big organizations. And I love the idea of the future holders. And a big challenge is, okay, these young startups are getting the right money and they're building their small SMEs, and perfect. That's one great achievement. Now, the big organizations that are making big decisions, and they have these committees and their board members, why isn't their youth present to make these decisions? So I loved what she said, and there's something that I keep repeating because I love. So let's imagine a board with 10 people, and we can say, if all of them are old or middle-aged, that's 10 out of 10, right? So now if I get one youth, that's a token. So I put a youth there. So just ting. If I get 2 youth out of 10, that's a minority. If I get 3 at least, it's a change. Absolutely. And that's what I think big organizations should do, what Juliet mentioned. Bring them on board. Let them share an idea that none of us are thinking about, and we will do something big, I think.
I think, Anna, if you allow me just to add one thing, what's missing is youth's representation at the decision-making level. And with every workshop or activity that we hold inside schools or universities, what impresses me the most is youths and Gen Z's ability to really show us the future, to help us envision the future with their eyes. And what I mean here is that every single time they are presenting a business solution or an idea, their vision and the ideas that they come up with is not something we're used to see. And this is what I mean when I say they help us envision the future, basically.
So if you're a Gen Zer and you work for a corporation, don't wait for the corporation to make that change. Suggest it. Go and suggest it yourself.
مرحبا أنس كيف حالك؟
مرحبا هلا.
Excellent segue. What you were just saying, because I work directly with a lot of Gen Zers, I mentor them, one
Can you
challenge.
Introduce yourself?
My name is Sana Bagarsh, and I own a few platforms that are focused on youth interculturalism and sustainability. And I live between Dubai and Seattle, so I sort of straddle a few continents. But the challenge that I see, and my daughter goes to Stanford, and they were doing research, her group was doing research, and I was mentoring them. The big challenge they have relates to, we want to make a difference, but there is a sellout culture, even in places like Stanford. So they graduate and they go to McKinsey or KPMG or other places. They want to make a difference, but they don't know how to sustain themselves. They still need a job. You know, they want the nice car. Living in Silicon Valley is very expensive, as you know, or other places in the world. So how do you bridge that? Young people want to make a difference. They want to serve on boards. They want to participate. But how do they become involved without losing that financial edge they would have if they went directly to the corporate world?
Great question. Juliet, you want to start?
I mean, the number of entrepreneurs I see who have gone that route. So they have gone into some of the big consultancies, and they've stayed there. But they've worked in areas where they're finding out really interesting trends. They get themselves into a place of something that they're interested in, and then they leave and go and set up companies. And I've seen that time and time again. There's an organization I'm working with at the moment that's a carbon offset platform called Mobatable. The 2 founders of that did exactly that. They went to I can't remember, I think it was Harvard and then business school. And then after that, they spent 2 or 3 years in consultancy, and now they've set up a business. And I think, so I don't think that route doesn't preclude you from getting into startups at all. In fact, sometimes you learn a lot of the basics, because one of the big challenges is you come straight out of university, you don't necessarily have any of the basic skills about reporting, understanding business models, sort of financial modeling, any of that stuff. go work in a big organization and learn it all, and then go and start up what you want.
Yeah, just to add to that, our experience is the sweet spot with founders is late 20s. So when you have had some work experience and you had time to build networks and ideas, and then when you jump and go start a company, then you're much more effective than if you're straight out of university.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a point.
Go ahead,
Yeah. From my journey, I saw that social media can infuse your reaching your goal faster. I started my company, the Organic Farm, the second year of the university, from scratch, as you know the story. It was very basic. It's only like my cousin's farm, some vegetable that we grow on the farm. By the time I started without social media, it was very hard to reach people. It was very hard to sell the product. But when I started thinking about educating people about organic, downloading videos about how they can plant, how organic is better than the normal, I reached more than 2 million people to my account. I reached more than 600,000 of I sell from my farm. And a lot was because of social media. Social media is very powerful and can take you in 2 years to beyond. My friends, like farmers from 60s, 50s, they are farmers, but they didn't reach what I reached in 3 years. All because of the communication. I study PR, yeah, and political science.
That's the secret.
Yeah, because the PR, because of the social media, it's pushed me very fast to reach what I reach now.
I mean, so you had a vision. You started while you were still in school.
Yeah.
And I guess you leveraged your degree to also find success in social media and be able to educate everybody about organics in general.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
Anna, he said something that I don't think he realized. Yes, social media was the channel, but Saeed led by value. If you lead by value that the person watching you feels he's benefiting, you don't need to promote anything. So he's leading by knowledge, not saying, please buy this, you know, it's the doesn't work
and
anymore.
by authenticity.
Yeah,
which
it
is-
doesn't
which
work
is
anymore.
critical.
Maybe it used to work in my time, but now you lead by education, by information, by making somebody feel something. They will come to you and buy your product because there's value, which I think you're doing a good job with that. Yeah.
So remember, we're all heading over to see Saeed's organic farm at COP afterwards. We have time for one more? Okay.
Yes, last question, and I'm going to just combine two, because one is social media. Has social media been a positive force in Gen Z's fight against climate change, or is it a distraction from our connection with the environment? And what concrete actions should be taken so that Gen Z is included in decision-making and not only as enthusiasts of change?
Two-part question.
I have a point about that. What I saw that I started implementing stories about small things. I was going to end the speech with that, about changing small things in their homes, changing the bottles or changing the clinics that we use, the bags that we use, plastic bags, small things, gardening in the home, our own vegetables. It's a small things that any family can start, and it will build on until we reach a sustainable house, reducing many things, reducing the emissions of a country, UAE. One house to 100,000 house to 200,000 house will do a difference. That's why what I saw on TikTok and other DIYs that they are showing people at very easy level how to transfer from plastic bags to newspaper bags to a lot of solutions that we find it easily in TikTok and Instagram, and it's from youth, from kids also, and how we can educate kids that can make a change in the houses, like the PR that the AD police was doing before, how to educate the kids in their schools about the belt, the seat belt of the cars, and how the kids in the cars see their parents that they don't put the belt, and then father, please put the belt, father, mother, please put the belt, because they have the knowledge from the schools.
Or it's not 10, it's 2, right?
Yeah, and they are changing the perspective of family, from the kids.
So, important point about social media not just being a distraction, but actually breaking down a huge problem into smaller, actionable solutions. Anyone else want to tackle this one before we round out?
I mean, I think the question is it a distraction or is it an addition? And I think my personal view is Gen Z are pretty good at navigating this stuff, and I cannot see that we get this level of awareness around climate today amongst that generation if we didn't have social media. And I think coming back to the point on information, it's an absolute way of communicating and selling. You give clear information, you become an advocate and give something to your audience, then they're going to come and give back to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to be fair, it's been a huge education for the other generations as well.
Yes.
So much more than so. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you to the panelists and the speakers.